The dust swirled around the train platform as Olivia Owens clutched her worn leather suitcase, her knuckles white with tension. Wyoming Territory, 1875, a place she'd only read about in letters from the man who had promised to be her husband. The wind tugged at her bonnet as she squinted toward the collection of wooden buildings that made up the small town of Rawlins, Wyoming. Her stomach twisted with nerves and the lingering effects of the grueling 5-day journey from Boston. Miss Owens. A thin man with wire-rimmed spectacles approached, holding a clipboard. "Welcome to Rawlins. I'm Mr. Peterson, the station manager. I was told to expect you." Olivia nodded, trying to maintain her composure despite her exhaustion. "Yes, I'm here to meet Mr. Theodore Franklin. We've been corresponding for nearly a year, and I've come to be his bride." Something flickered across the station manager's face, a hesitation, perhaps even pity. "Miss Owens, I believe there may be. Well, there might be a situation you should know about regarding Mr. Franklin." A chill ran through Olivia that had nothing to do with the October air. "What situation?" Mr. Peterson cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps it would be best if you came with me to the hotel first." "Get yourself settled and, please, Mr. Peterson," Olivia interrupted, her voice firmer than she felt. "I've traveled nearly 2,000 miles. Whatever news you have, I'd prefer to hear it now." The station manager removed his spectacles, polishing them nervously with a handkerchief. "Mr. Franklin married a local widow 3 months ago. Her name is Sarah Jenkins. She had 2 young children and property. I'm afraid he never canceled his arrangement with you." Olivia felt as though she'd been struck. The letters, the promises, the money she'd spent her entire future collapsed in an instant. She'd sold everything she owned back in Boston, leaving nothing to return to. Her parents were gone, her small inheritance spent on this journey. "I see," she managed, though her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "I'm terribly sorry, Miss Owens. This sort of thing, well, it's not unheard of out here." Olivia nodded mechanically, fighting back tears. "Is there somewhere I might stay tonight while I consider my options?" "The Rawlins Hotel has rooms available. It's just down the street." As Mr. Peterson escorted her toward the hotel, Olivia's mind raced. 24 years old, alone in a frontier town with dwindling funds and no prospects, the reality of her situation was devastating. She'd come west to escape the limited options for a woman of her station back east, only to find herself in an even more precarious position. The hotel lobby was modestly furnished but clean. As Mr. Peterson spoke quietly with the clerk, Olivia became aware of a tall figure watching from near the fireplace. He stood with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to difficult circumstances, his broad shoulders and sun-weathered face marking him as someone who worked outdoors. When their eyes met, he tipped his hat slightly before turning back to his conversation with another man. After securing a room, Olivia thanked the station manager and made her way upstairs. Once alone, she finally allowed herself to cry, muffling her sobs with a pillow so no one would hear. Everything she had planned, everything she had hoped for, was gone. A knock at her door an hour later startled her. Composing herself as best she could, Olivia opened the door to find a young woman in a simple dress holding a tray. "Evenin', madam. The hotel manager thought you might like some supper, seeing as you just arrived. I'm Lucy, I help out around here." "That's very kind, thank you," Olivia replied, accepting the tray. Lucy hesitated. "If you don't mind my saying so, word travels fast in Rawlins. I heard about your situation." Her expression was sympathetic. "If you're looking for work while you figure things out, the general store might need help. Mrs. Wilson, who runs it, has been complaining about her rheumatism." Olivia managed a smile. "I appreciate the suggestion. I'll certainly need to find something." After Lucy left, Olivia picked at the simple meal of stew and bread, her appetite gone. As darkness fell over the frontier town, she stood by the window watching the lamplights come on along the main street. Tomorrow, she would have to face Theodore Franklin and decide what to do next. Morning came too quickly. Olivia dressed in her best remaining outfit, a navy blue traveling dress with modest lace trim at the collar. If she was to confront the man who had so callously deceived her, she would do so with dignity. The general store was easy to find on the town's main street. A bell jingled as Olivia entered, finding herself in a well-stocked establishment with everything from farm implements to fabric bolts. An elderly woman looked up from behind the counter. "Good morning. You must be Miss Owens." "News does travel quickly here," Olivia observed. "It's not every day a mail-order bride arrives to find her intended already married," the woman replied frankly. "I'm Mrs. Wilson. That no-good Theodore Franklin isn't worth your tears, dear." "I don't intend to waste any more on him," Olivia said, surprising herself with her resolve. "I was told you might need assistance in the store." Mrs. Wilson studied her. "Can you read, write, and figure sums?" "Yes, I was a schoolteacher in Boston." "A schoolteacher? Well, that's fortunate. Our last teacher left to get married 6 months ago. The town council's been looking for a replacement." For the first time since arriving, Olivia felt a glimmer of hope. "I would be very interested in such a position. The pay isn't much, but it comes with living quarters above the schoolhouse. In the meantime, I could use the help here." Mrs. Wilson gestured to her gnarled hands. "These old bones don't work like they used to." After arranging to start work the following day, Olivia steeled herself for the confrontation she couldn't avoid. Mrs. Wilson had directed her to Theodore Franklin's farm on the edge of town. The walk gave her time to organize her thoughts, but nothing could prepare her for the sight of the man himself, shorter and older than she had imagined from his letters, working in the yard of a modest farmhouse as she approached. "Mr. Franklin," she called out, her voice steadier than she felt. He turned, confusion crossing his face before recognition dawned, followed immediately by visible discomfort. "Miss Owens, I wasn't expecting you, clearly," she replied coolly. "Yet here I am, as arranged in our correspondence." Before he could respond, a woman appeared in the doorway of the house, a small child on her hip. "Theo, who's this?" Theodore's face paled. "Sarah, this is, an acquaintance from back east." Olivia felt a surge of indignation at his cowardice. "Mrs. Franklin, I'm Olivia Owens. Until yesterday, I believed I was traveling to Wyoming to marry your husband, as we had arranged through our correspondence over the past year." Sarah Franklin's expression hardened as she turned to her husband. "Is this true, Theodore?" The man, stammering, confirmed his guilt more effectively than any admission could have. "Miss Owens," Sarah said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger, "I think you and I should speak privately." What followed was one of the most surreal conversations of Olivia's life. In the small kitchen, while Theodore remained outside with the children, Sarah revealed that she had no knowledge of Olivia's arrangement with her husband. She had married Theodore believing him to be a bachelor, bringing her children and her late first husband's farm into the marriage. "I won't pretend I'm not furious," Sarah said, her hands trembling slightly as she poured coffee. "But my anger is with Theodore, not with you. You're as much a victim of his deception as I am." "I don't want to cause trouble for your family," Olivia assured her. "I only came today to face him and recover what funds I could for my return journey." Sarah looked surprised. "You're planning to go back east?" "I don't know what else to do. I've secured temporary work at the general store, but my resources are limited." Sarah was silent for a moment. "Theodore will repay what you've spent plus your return fare. I'll see to that." She paused. But before you decide to leave, you should know Rawlins needs a school teacher. A woman with education has options here. As Olivia left the Franklin farm with a promise of repayment, she felt strangely unburdened. The betrayal still stung, but confronting Theodore had given her some measure of closure. She was considering Sarah's suggestion about the teaching position when she noticed a rider approaching. It was the man from the hotel lobby, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair visible beneath his hat. He reined his horse alongside her. "Miss Owens," he said, tipping his hat. "Thought you might want to ride back to town. It's a fair walk." Olivia hesitated, studying him. His eyes were a striking blue against his sun-darkened skin, and though his clothing was plain, it was well kept. "I don't believe we've been properly introduced, sir." A smile touched his lips. "Daniel Sullivan. I run the Double S Ranch about 5 miles outside town." He extended a hand down to her. "And I promise I'm a sight more honorable than Theodore Franklin." Something about his direct manner and the genuine concern in his expression made Olivia accept his offered hand. He pulled her up behind him with ease. "Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I'm finding walking distances here are quite different from Boston." "Call me Daniel," he said as he guided the horse toward town. "Everyone does. I heard about your situation. Small towns don't keep secrets well." "So I've noticed," Olivia replied dryly. "It seems everyone in Rawlins knew about my predicament before I did. That's the way of it out here. The good news is folks look out for each other, too." He glanced back at her. "I understand Mrs. Wilson's offered you work." "Yes, and apparently there's a teaching position available as well." "There is. My younger sister Abigail would be in your class. She's 16. Smart as a whip but needs proper schooling." As they rode, Daniel told her about Rawlins, how the Union Pacific Railroad had established the town just 7 years earlier, how it was growing with the cattle industry, and how people from all walks of life were building a community there. By the time they reached the hotel, Olivia had a clearer picture of the place she had landed. Daniel helped her down from the horse, his hands strong and steady at her waist. "Thank you for the ride and the information," she said. "My pleasure." He seemed about to leave, then turned back. "Miss Owens, there's a town social this Saturday at the church. Might help you meet some folks if you're considering staying." "Are you asking me to accompany you, Mr. Sullivan?" His smile returned, revealing a dimple in his right cheek. "I'm suggesting you might enjoy it. Whether you'd like company getting there is entirely up to you." With that, he tipped his hat again and rode off, leaving Olivia with much to consider. The next day, Olivia began working at the general store. Mrs. Wilson proved to be a fountain of local knowledge, introducing Olivia to customers and filling her in on the town's dynamics. By midday, she had met the mayor, the blacksmith, the banker, and numerous ranchers' wives who came to town for supplies. "You're quite the topic of conversation, Mrs. Wilson remarked as they arranged a new shipment of fabric. "Not just because of the Franklin business, but because we rarely get educated Eastern ladies out here. I'm not sure how I feel about being the subject of town gossip," Olivia admitted. "People are curious, that's all. And several eligible gentlemen have already made inquiries about you." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Including Daniel Sullivan," Mrs. Wilson's eyes twinkled. "Daniel's a good man. Built that ranch from nothing after the war. He doesn't come into town much except for supplies and church, so folks noticed when he gave you a ride yesterday. He mentioned a sister, Abigail. Their parents died of fever 4 years ago. Daniel's raised her since she was 12. He's done right by her, making sure she gets an education even while building the ranch." This information added depth to Olivia's impression of the rancher. A man who prioritized his sister's education and built a successful ranch showed character and dedication qualities Theodore Franklin had only pretended to possess. That evening, Olivia met with the town council about the teaching position. The salary was modest as Mrs. Wilson had warned, but the living quarters above the schoolhouse would solve her housing concerns. The council members seemed impressed with her credentials and experience teaching in Boston. "We've had trouble keeping teachers," Mayor Jenkins explained. "Most young women come west looking for husbands, not careers. Once they find one, they leave the schoolhouse behind. I assure you, gentlemen, after my recent experience, marriage is not my priority," Olivia stated firmly, earning a few understanding nods. By week's end, Olivia had secured the teaching position, scheduled to start after the harvest season ended in 2 weeks. She continued working at the general store in the meantime, gradually adjusting to life in Rawlins. Saturday arrived with clear skies and mild weather. Olivia had decided to attend the social, partly out of curiosity and partly because she recognized the importance of community connections if she was to make a life here. She wore her second-best dress, a forest green wool with subtle embroidery at the cuffs, and arranged her auburn hair in a simple but elegant style. The church was lit with lanterns when she arrived, the sound of fiddle music and laughter spilling into the evening air. Inside, tables of food lined one wall while couples danced in the cleared center of the room. "Miss Owens," a familiar voice greeted her. Daniel Sullivan stood near the entrance, looking transformed from the working rancher she had met. He wore a clean white shirt under a dark vest, his hair neatly combed. "Mr. Sullivan, it seems we had the same idea." "I'm glad you came," he said, offering his arm. "May I introduce you to some folks?" The evening passed pleasantly as Daniel introduced her to ranchers, merchants, and their families. Olivia met his sister Abigail, a pretty girl with the same striking blue eyes as her brother and an eager mind that delighted in the prospect of having a real teacher again. "Daniel's taught me when he could," Abigail explained, "but he's so busy with the ranch, especially since our foreman left last spring." "Your brother speaks highly of your intelligence," Olivia told her. Abigail smiled fondly at Daniel, who was speaking with the blacksmith nearby. "He's given up a lot to make sure I have opportunities. Most brothers would have sent me to relatives or a boarding school after our parents died, but Daniel insisted we stay together." As the evening progressed, Daniel asked Olivia to dance. She hesitated only briefly before accepting, finding him to be a competent dancer despite his profession. "I'm surprised a rancher knows how to waltz," she remarked as they moved across the floor. "My mother insisted both her children learn proper social graces," he replied with a smile. "Said just because we lived in the West didn't mean we had to be uncivilized." When they stepped outside for air later, the stars were brilliant overhead, more numerous than Olivia had ever seen in Boston. "It's beautiful," she breathed, looking upward. "One of the things I love about this country," Daniel agreed. "You can see forever on a clear night." Their conversation turned to her plans for the school, his challenges with the ranch, and the differences between their backgrounds. Olivia found herself laughing more than she had in months, drawn to his straightforward manner and thoughtful observations. As Daniel walked her back to the hotel, he said, "I heard you'll be moving into the schoolhouse next week." "Yes, once it's prepared. The council is having it cleaned and some repairs made," he nodded. "Abigail and I could help you move your things if you'd like. I'll be bringing the wagon to town for supplies anyway." "That's very kind of you." They paused at the hotel entrance, the moment stretching between them. "Miss Owens, Olivia," Daniel said, suddenly serious. "I want to be direct with you. I find myself enjoying your company a great deal." Olivia felt warmth rise in her cheeks. I've enjoyed yours as well, Daniel. I know you came here with certain expectations that were disappointed. I wouldn't want to press unwelcome attention on you. His consideration touched her. Your attention is not unwelcome, she assured him, but I am still finding my footing here. Of course. He took her hand gently. I just wanted you to know that when you're ready, if you're ready, there's at least one man in Rawlins who would court you properly. He raised her hand to his lips briefly, then bid her good night. The following week brought change and challenge for Olivia. Theodore Franklin had come to the store, awkwardly delivering the money he owed her, plus extra for her inconvenience, as he put it. Olivia accepted it with cool politeness, noting that Sarah must have been quite insistent. Moving into the schoolhouse quarters proved more work than anticipated. The space had been neglected, requiring thorough cleaning and minor repairs. True to his word, Daniel arrived with his wagon and Abigail to help. They spent the day transforming the small apartment into a comfortable home, with Daniel fixing broken furniture and a leaky window while Abigail helped Olivia arrange her belongings. It's simple, but it suits me, Olivia said as they finished, looking around at the two-room living quarters. The main room served as kitchen and sitting area, while a smaller bedroom adjoined it. Large windows provided ample light and a view of the mountains in the distance. It's a good start, Daniel agreed, washing his hands after completing the repairs. Abigail and I brought you something to make it feel more like home. Abigail retrieved a package from the wagon, presenting it to Olivia with a shy smile. Inside was a handmade quilt in shades of blue and green. It belonged to our mother, Abigail explained. Daniel thought you might like it for your bed. Olivia was deeply touched by the gesture. It's beautiful. Are you certain you want to part with it? We have others, Daniel said, and it seemed right somehow that it should come to you. The first day of school arrived with 18 students ranging from 6 to 16 years old. Olivia quickly discovered that teaching on the frontier differed substantially from her experience in Boston. Her students' knowledge varied widely, some barely literate while others, like Abigail, had advanced well beyond basics despite irregular schooling. She adapted, creating groups based on ability rather than age and developing lessons that could be completed independently while she worked with different sections of the class. The children responded well to her methods, particularly when she incorporated practical applications of their learning. Daniel began finding reasons to visit town more frequently, sometimes bringing fresh vegetables from his garden or game he had hunted. These visits often coincided with the end of the school day, allowing him to walk Olivia home or invite her for a ride to see the countryside. As autumn deepened toward winter, their growing attachment became obvious to the townspeople. Olivia found herself looking forward to his visits, appreciating his steady presence and thoughtful conversation. Unlike Theodore's flowery letters full of empty promises, Daniel showed his character through actions and reliability. One crisp November afternoon, Daniel invited Olivia to visit his ranch. Abigail's been asking when you'll come see the place, he explained, though his eyes suggested his sister wasn't the only one eager for the visit. The Double S Ranch impressed Olivia with its well-maintained buildings and efficient operation. The main house was larger than she expected, a two-story structure built of sturdy logs with a wide porch. Daniel built most of it himself, Abigail told her proudly as they toured the property. Added the second story last year so I could have my own room. Inside, the house was simply but comfortably furnished, with touches that revealed the care of its inhabitants. Bookshelves filled with well-read volumes, handmade curtains at the windows, a piano in the corner of the main room. You play? Olivia asked, surprised. Abigail does, Daniel answered. I hauled that thing all the way from Denver when she was 14. Nearly broke my back getting it here. It was the best birthday present ever, Abigail said, sitting down to demonstrate her skill with a simple melody. Over dinner, Olivia learned more about their life on the ranch, the challenges of harsh winters, the satisfaction of a successful cattle drive, the community of workers who helped during busy seasons. Most of the men have gone now that winter's coming, Daniel explained. We keep a smaller crew through the cold months. As dusk approached, Daniel suggested showing Olivia his favorite view of the property. They walked to a small rise behind the house, where the land fell away to reveal miles of prairie stretching toward distant mountains. It's breathtaking, Olivia said, drawing her shawl closer against the cooling air. Daniel stood beside her, his presence warm in the gathering twilight. The first time I saw this spot, I knew this was where I wanted to build something lasting. She glanced at him, struck by the quiet intensity in his expression. You've accomplished a great deal. I've built the ranch, yes, but lately I've been thinking about what else makes a home. He turned to face her fully. Olivia, I know we haven't known each other long, but I find myself thinking of you constantly. Her heart quickened. Daniel, let me finish, please. When you came to Rawlins, you were looking for a husband, though not me. I understand if that's not what you want anymore. But I need you to know that I'm falling in love with you. The simple, honest declaration moved her deeply. I came here with such different expectations, she admitted. I thought I knew what I wanted: security, a home, a family. When Theodore's deception was revealed, I felt such a fool. You weren't the fool in that situation, Daniel said firmly. Perhaps not. But it made me question my judgment, yet here with you. She looked up at him, finally allowing herself to acknowledge her feelings. With you, I feel secure not because you offer me protection, but because you respect me. You see me as a partner, not a possession. Daniel took her hand gently. Is that a roundabout way of saying you might have feelings for me too? Olivia smiled. It is indeed, Mr. Sullivan. He drew her closer, his expression asking permission. When she nodded slightly, he kissed her, a tender, questioning kiss that deepened as she responded. When they returned to the house, Abigail took one look at their linked hands and broke into a delighted smile. Finally. I was beginning to think you two would never figure it out. The weeks that followed were among the happiest of Olivia's life. She continued teaching, finding fulfillment in her students' progress. Daniel courted her properly, taking her to dinner at the hotel restaurant, bringing her books from his library, and introducing her to the beauty of the Wyoming territory through rides across his land. As Christmas approached, the town prepared for its annual celebration. Olivia's students presented a program of recitations and carols, followed by a community dinner at the church. Daniel and Abigail sat with Olivia, the three of them increasingly regarded as a family unit by the townspeople. After the festivities, Daniel asked Olivia to accompany him on a walk despite the cold. He led her to the schoolhouse, where a small package waited on her doorstep. A Christmas gift, he explained as she unwrapped it to find a beautifully crafted wooden box. Open it. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a simple gold ring with a small diamond. I had it sent from Denver, Daniel said, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. Olivia Owens, I know you came to Wyoming to marry a different man, but I'm hoping you'll consider marrying me instead. Tears welled in her eyes. Are you certain? I have nothing to bring to this marriage, no dowry, no property. You bring yourself, he said simply. Your intelligence, your kindness, your strength, that's all I want or need. Then yes, she whispered. Yes, I will marry you, Daniel Sullivan. They were married on New Year's Day, 1876, in the Rawlins church with the entire town in attendance. Olivia wore a cream-colored dress that Mrs. Wilson had helped her alter and carried pine cones and evergreen boughs instead of flowers. Daniel, in a new suit, watched her walk down the aisle with an expression of such joy that several of the townswomen dabbed at their eyes. Abigail stood as Olivia's attendant, beaming with happiness at gaining a sister. After the ceremony, the community celebrated with a feast and dancing that lasted well into the evening. That night, as Daniel carried her over the threshold of their home, for the ranch was truly home now, Olivia reflected on the strange path that had brought her to this moment. "Are you happy, Mrs. Sullivan?" Daniel asked, setting her down gently in their bedroom. "Remarkably so, Mr. Sullivan," she replied, reaching up to touch his face. "Who would have thought that Theodore Franklin's deception would lead me to true happiness?" "I think I owe the man a debt of gratitude," Daniel murmured, drawing her close, "though I won't be telling him so." Their life together unfolded with the natural rhythm of the seasons. Winter brought cozy evenings by the fire, reading aloud or playing games with Abigail. Olivia continued teaching, riding to town with Daniel when weather permitted and staying with Mrs. Wilson when storms made travel impossible. Spring arrived with new calves and the busy work of planting. Olivia proved herself adaptable, learning ranch tasks while maintaining her teaching duties. Her students thrived under her guidance, particularly the older girls who saw in her an example of a woman who combined education with frontier life. By summer, Olivia had news of her own to share. On a warm evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, she placed Daniel's hand on her still flat stomach. "I believe our family will be growing by winter," she told him, her eyes shining. The joy that spread across his face was answer enough, but he gathered her in his arms anyway, whispering words of love and excitement against her hair. Their son, James William Sullivan, was born on a snowy December morning with Abigail and the local midwife in attendance. Daniel paced outside until the baby's first cry rang out, then rushed in to find Olivia tired but radiant, holding their child. "He has your eyes," she told him as he gently took the swaddled infant. "And your determination," Daniel replied with a laugh as the baby gripped his finger fiercely. He arrived faster than the midwife expected. "I told her Sullivan men don't waste time once they've made up their minds," Abigail said proudly, already the doting aunt. As James grew, so did the ranch and their happiness. Olivia continued teaching until her second pregnancy. When the town hired a new teacher, a young woman from Ohio, who boarded with Mrs. Wilson and quickly became part of the community. Their daughter, Elizabeth Sarah Sullivan, joined the family 18 months after James, bringing a new dimension of joy and chaos to the household. Daniel proved himself as devoted a father as he was a husband, often carrying a child while completing his ranch duties. Abigail, now 20, had become a talented pianist and was being courted by the son of a neighboring rancher. Her education, supplemented by Olivia's teaching, had prepared her well for whatever future she chose. 5 years after arriving in Rawlins, Olivia received a letter from Boston, an old friend informing her that the school where she had taught was being expanded. The letter included news of former colleagues, some married, some still teaching, all continuing along the paths they had chosen. Olivia sat on the porch, reading the letter while watching Daniel play with their children in the yard. James, now 4, was attempting to rope a fence post under his father's guidance, while 2-year-old Elizabeth tottered after them, determined to participate. How different her life might have been if Theodore Franklin had been honest, or if Daniel Sullivan hadn't offered her a ride that day. The thought gave her pause. As if sensing her contemplation, Daniel looked up and caught her eye, smiling with the same warmth that had first drawn her to him. "Mama, look," James called, successfully looping his small rope around the post. "I did it." "Well done," she called back, setting aside the letter to join her family. That evening, after the children were asleep, Olivia showed Daniel the letter from Boston. "You ever regret it?" he asked quietly as they sat by the fire. "Coming west, I mean. Your life here is so different from what it might have been." She considered the question seriously, knowing he deserved an honest answer. "I miss certain things: theaters, libraries, the convenience of city life. But regret?" She shook her head. "Never. This life we've built together is more fulfilling than anything I could have imagined in Boston." He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "You know, I never planned to marry. After my parents died and I took on raising Abigail, I thought that was my path: the ranch, my sister, maybe some hired help as I got older." "What changed your mind?" His smile was tender in the firelight. "I saw a woman standing alone at the train station, looking both lost and determined. Then I heard her story, how she'd been deceived but faced it with dignity. And I thought, there's someone who doesn't give up. I admired that." "You never told me you saw me at the station," Olivia said, surprised. "I was picking up supplies when your train arrived." "I didn't introduce myself then because it wasn't the right time. But I knew I wanted to know you better." Olivia leaned against him, content in the knowledge that their meeting, though born of disappointment, had led to something genuine and lasting. 10 years after arriving in Wyoming territory as a mail-order bride for another man, Olivia Sullivan stood on the porch of her home, watching a rider approach through the golden light of late afternoon. The ranch had prospered under Daniel's management, growing to 3 times its original size. The main house had been expanded again to accommodate their family, which now included a third child, Robert Daniel, age 6, who had his father's build and his mother's thoughtful nature. The rider was Daniel, returning from town with the mail and supplies. At 40, he was still handsome, the years having added character rather than diminished his strength. He dismounted with the same fluid grace he had always possessed, greeting his children as they ran to meet him. James, now 9, was tall for his age and already showed aptitude for ranch work. Elizabeth, 7, had her mother's auburn hair and a quick mind that devoured books as fast as Olivia could supply them. Young Robert followed his siblings, eager to hear news from town. "Mrs. Wilson sends her regards," Daniel told Olivia as he joined her on the porch. "And there's a letter for you from Abigail." Abigail had married her rancher's son 3 years earlier and moved to his family's property near Cheyenne, where they were building their own success. Her letters always brought welcome news. "How are things in town?" Olivia asked as they went inside, the children following with the packages their father had brought, growing still. "The railroad's bringing more people west every month." He paused, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "I saw Theodore Franklin. His wife has him working in her father's bank now." "Is that so?" Olivia replied, amused. "And how did Mr. Franklin look?" "Like a man who spends his days counting other people's money and his nights explaining himself to a woman who's too good for him." She laughed, helping him unpack the supplies. "You're terrible, Daniel Sullivan. Perhaps. But I'm also the luckiest man in Wyoming territory." He pulled her close for a quick kiss. "I got the mail-order bride after all." "Not exactly as intended," she reminded him. "No," he agreed, his expression softening as he looked at their children setting the table for dinner at the home they had built together. "It was much better than intended." That night, as they lay together in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, Olivia thought about the journey that had brought her to this place and this man. The disappointment that had seemed so devastating had opened the door to a life richer and more fulfilling than she could have imagined. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel murmured, his arm secure around her waist. How sometimes the best things in life come from the worst disappointments, she replied. If Theodore Franklin hadn't deceived me, I would never have met you. Then I'm grateful for his poor character, Daniel said, though I'd still like to punch him every time I see him. Olivia laughed softly. After all these years, a man doesn't forget when someone hurts the woman he loves, even if it all turned out for the best. She turned in his arms to face him, tracing the familiar contours of his face in the faint moonlight through the window. I love you, Daniel Sullivan. Mail order bride or not, I was meant to find you. And I you, Olivia Sullivan, he replied, sealing the words with a kiss that, even after years of marriage, still made her heart race. From the moment you arrived in Rawlins, you were coming home, you just didn't know it yet. In the years that followed, their family and ranch continued to prosper. James eventually took over the ranch operations, allowing Daniel and Olivia to travel occasionally, even making a trip to Boston, where Olivia showed her husband and children the city of her youth. Elizabeth became a teacher like her mother, while Robert's mechanical aptitude led him to work with the railroad. Abigail and her husband eventually bought land adjoining the Double S, reuniting the siblings and expanding the family enterprise. Her children and the Sullivan children grew up together, cousins as close as siblings. Theodore Franklin remained a minor figure in Rawlins, never quite escaping the reputation of the man who had deceived a mail-order bride. In time, even Olivia came to regard the incident with nothing more than a distant bemusement, a wrong turn that had led to the right destination. On their 30th wedding anniversary, the entire extended family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. As dusk fell, Daniel and Olivia slipped away to the rise behind the house, the spot where he had first declared his love. You remember standing here as a young woman? He asked, his arm around her waist. Of course, she replied, leaning into his familiar embrace. I was trying to imagine what my life might be like if I stayed in Rawlins. And how does the reality compare to what you imagined? Olivia looked out over the land they had nurtured together, then back at the house, filled with their children, grandchildren, and friends. In the distance, the lights of Rawlins twinkled, the town having grown from the frontier settlement she had first encountered. The reality is immeasurably better, she said simply, because I could never have imagined you, Daniel Sullivan, nor the life we would build together. He kissed her then, under the vast Wyoming sky, with the same tenderness he had shown that first time so many years ago when a mail-order bride who had arrived to find her groom married had instead found something far more precious. A love that was genuine, a partnership built on respect, and a life filled with purpose and joy. And in that moment, as always, Olivia knew that the greatest journey of her life had not been the train ride from Boston to Rawlins, but the path that had led her heart from disappointment to a love that had only deepened with each passing year.